Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jeremy from Randolph Running Club, and I am just about 2 weeks removed at this point from the California International Marathon that I ran. So you'll see me here with my little medal, a couple Mondays late, but it's here. And I just want to, give you guys a recap of my race, basically the weekend, how it went, what were my goals, how did it all turn out, and just kind of walk you through that, right? So, just kind of getting straight into it. This was a marathon that I signed up for just after I finished my Chicago marathon in October. And basically, I did it almost in like a revenge kind of fashion. I was feeling very deflated in the fact that I had really lofty goals for Chicago. And for one reason or another, my own, foolishness or the weather or whatever, it ended up not really quite going to plan. And, I just felt like I had a lot more in me. I didn't have as much fun as I could have had at Chicago because I was so locked in on these goals that I didn't end up achieving anyway. So basically it was like catch-22 almost or something, right? Like I had in my mind that I was going to hit these goals and that the goals were the thing that were going to bring me my joy. So it was like once I didn't hit those goals, the race started to kind of unravel, and I just felt more and more like I wasn't achieving what I wanted to, and it wasn't a good feeling. So I signed up for this race like 2 or 3 days after that finished, super last minute. I was really lucky that they had space, and I think I got one of the last entries, because shortly thereafter I saw that they weren't taking any new runners in the California International Marathon for 2021. So, hopping into it, right? Day before the race, the race is in Sacramento. It finishes in downtown Sacramento. It starts in Folsom, near the Folsom Dam or Folsom Prison, if you're a Johnny Cash fan. So that's about an hour and a half, 2-hour drive from where I am in Oakland. So basically a local race. It was pretty easy getting over there. And my wife and I, Chelsea and I, we went to the packet pickup at the convention center downtown straight away. So, we left sometime in the morning, got there early afternoon, and it was a very smooth and uneventful packet pickup, which is my favorite kind, because when I did the whole thing in Chicago, I found that, it was extremely organized, but there were so many runners there that it ended up taking roughly an hour and a half, 2 hours for me between standing in line, picking up my bib, walking through the expo and everything, getting back, into an Uber, back to the hotel, all these things, right? It just took so much time. Whereas for CIM, it was roughly 15 minutes that I spent at the convention center. Super easy. They had everything, lined up and smooth, easy for you to go through. They checked, your COVID test or your COVID vaccination result. And yeah, it was just all around a great experience. I got to try some of the new nutrition that would be on the course, and the GU or GU, not totally sure, energy gels, and just see, what was going to be on the course, so that I wasn't having it for the first time on race day. So, that was pretty good. And then Chelsea and I, we kind of walked around downtown just very briefly. I hope you're noticing a theme here. I was trying to stay off my feet before this race. So we walked maybe 3 or 4 minutes to go to this restaurant that we had seen called Cafeteria 15L. Normally I would not call out a restaurant like this, but I really want you guys to know that the food there, the vibes, everything, immaculate. It was an extraordinary time. We had such a good time. I had a very carb-rich lunch just in preparation for the race. And the rest is history. So Cafeteria 15L, if you're ever in Sacramento and you're looking for a good place to eat and just kind of relax with your loved ones. So the rest of the day, we went back to the hotel, binge watched some shows on Netflix, and just totally relaxed. My whole goal was to stay off my feet. I feel like I walked way too much before I did the Chicago Marathon, and kind of undid my taper, which makes no sense, right? Like, you've done all this training and then you go sightseeing. I should have sightseeing after the race. So it is what it is. So stayed off the feet. Race day. All right. So now it's the morning of the race. I'm extremely excited. The race starts at 7 o'clock in the morning on the dot. So just the way that everything was kind of set up, they don't allow you to drive to the start line for safety reasons was the claim. I'm not totally sure what thought process went into that, but it was totally okay. I mean, I'm not shaming it. I just didn't understand what they meant by safety reasons exactly. So race starts at 7 a.m. I'm up at 4 because I have to catch a shuttle bus from my hotel to the start line that departs at 5 a.m. So I'm up at 4. I eat my typical like race day / long run, well, really long run breakfast. I have, a bowl of oatmeal, some granola. I had some kiwis, like a little bit of toast, and a bottle of Gatorade. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling energetic. I stretch a little bit. And I'm ready to go to the shuttle at 5. And this is from Hilton Arden West, I think is the hotel. And I'm walking up, it's like 4:55, maybe 4:50. I'm walking up and I see the 3 shuttle buses. They're literal yellow school buses, like you would have taken to school in elementary school or something like that. And I see 3 of them lined up. I'm like, hey, nothing wrong with that. I'm gonna get on there. It's like 40 something degrees and I'm from Florida, so I'm freezing. And my whole thing is like, all right, just gotta get on the bus. So I walk up and I see a ton of people in line, not totally sure what they're in line for. 2 of the buses are full, 1 is not. So I get into the back of the line and the bus driver comes out and he lets us know that bus is not going anywhere as the other 2 depart. And of course, you got a bunch of people standing in the cold, they're ready to run, people sipping coffee, people stretching, doing dynamic stretches. And the bus driver points down to the ground and there's literally an oil slick, like a swimming pool on the ground. The bus, while it was parked there, apparently sprung a leak and all of the engine oil just eased out into the ground. So that bus is not going anywhere. I guess it's good that happened while it was parked and not while I was on it and the other runners and we're on the way to the start line, because then who knows what would have happened. So we waited about another 30 minutes for them to send an additional bus to come and pick us up. Wasn't really a big issue, but for sure, when you got the nerves, race day nerves, and you're standing in the cold, you've done all these other things. I've been up for 3 hours or for 2 hours or whatever at this point. I'm like, oh man, like where's this bus? So finally, sometime around 5:30 or 5:45, the bus gets there. And, we get to the start line, roughly 6:20, I want to say. So, we've got some time to spare, about 30 or 40 minutes to spare. And, I just went ahead and I did some stretching, dynamic stretches, went to the porta potty twice. You're gonna notice a theme there. But yeah, I was just like, all right, gotta get ready. Gotta make sure that I'm hyped up for this race and I'm good to go. So at this point, I'm there and I'm like, hey, it's showtime. It's the actual time for the race. And, I settle into the corral a little bit behind the 4-hour and 5-minute pacer. And this, I want to make sure it's very clear. My A goal of this race was have fun. I said it earlier in the video, I felt like I didn't have as much fun as I could have when I was in Chicago. So my first thing was to just enjoy the course, interact with the crowd, and just have a nice time in general. So I'm behind the 4:05 pacer. I think they're gonna set out at like 9:20 pace per mile, which is like perfect. That's where I'm gonna start. And we get across the line at 7:09 on the dot. And I settle into a really calm 9:20 per mile pace. So, we're going through residential neighborhoods pretty much the whole race, but in the beginning it was extremely residential. Throw some video up for you guys to see. At one point we passed a house that had like horses out front, like it was like a ranch. It was really cool, and there was more spectators than I expected for a race that it's like 10,000-ish people participating. So very, very cool. We're running through and the crowd is really electric. Definitely, you hear the cowbells and everybody cheering you on and everything. People saying, with the signs and stuff, hey, you've been running through my mind, blah, blah, blah. All the little corny things. But when you're out on the course, this stuff really matters to you, right? Like it really kind of gets you hyped up. And I'm gradually speeding my pace up to about 9 minutes per mile from that initial 9:20 I started at. But here we go at mile 2.5, I want to say. I'm like, man, I really got to go to the restroom again, even though I already went twice. And I should reiterate that I also had a full bottle of Gatorade, like probably 16 ounces while I was on the shuttle on the way from the hotel. So my bladder is screaming to me. It's like, it's time to go. I'm extremely distracted because the aid stations were like at like mile 2.2, 4.4, like 6.8 or something. Like they're basically like 2 miles apart. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just passed an aid station and now I have to run like 2 more miles until I can get to another one. So, I'm just dropping the pace, and at mile like 4.5-ish, I slide into that porta potty, and I am stuck in there for like over a minute. Like, it felt like an eternity. I'm checking my watch, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And I never, ever go to use these during these races. Like, I've done many half marathons, I've done 10Ks, obviously I've done a marathon before, and I've never had this issue. So I'm like, this is so defeating right now. It just doesn't feel great. Every moment feels like an eternity at this point. And I had to keep reminding myself, your A goal is to have fun. I was like, are you having fun? Yes, you are, so it's okay. So finally, I get out of there with, a ton of time. A bunch of people that I've passed are back in front of me again. So that's like kind of frustrating, but it's like, hey, you know what? We're still having fun. Just keep pushing. And, I'm back underway. I'm feeling good. I take my first gel around this point. I was trying to take one every like 40 minutes or so and drink 2 cups at least of Noon nutrition at each aid station. So I'm hitting my marks there. Feeling good, keeping the pace nice and chill at this point. And around mile 7, it happens again. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on with my bladder? Like, bladder, chill. But it's just not happening. So, I get into like this kind of desperation mode. I'm like, all right, I got like another 1.5 miles before my next one. So I try to keep my mind, focused and really just enjoy like the atmosphere of it and not think about the fact that I really need a porta potty now. So, somewhere in between miles 8 and 9, I scooch into another one for another very long pit stop, over a minute. I'm watching the seconds tick by, freaking out, of course, because that's what runners do, right? We're so obsessed with time because that's like the only thing you have to compete with, really. So, all right, A goal, have fun. I come out and I'm feeling way better. I'm thinking this is gonna be the last time that I have to stop at one of these. So, super positive, and I just keep pushing. And I do have to say, at this point, I have caught up to the 405 pacer, past the 405 pacer group, I should say, because there was more than one pacer. I've gone to a porta potty, had them pass me again, caught up to them one more time, gone to the porta potty again, and had them pass me again. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So finally, somewhere around like mile 10, I'm like, gotta put my head down, time to get down to business. And I passed the 405 pacer, and I'm like, all right, baby, like, we're locked in, let's go. We're gonna get this sub 4 hours. Like, you're almost halfway, and you got these people behind you now. Like, just keep going and stop going to the bathroom. So yeah, take another gel, stop for another like water break, and miles 11 through 13, super consistent pace. I think these are like just a smidge under 9 minutes per mile, which is like exactly where I want to be. Feeling really comfortable. And the crowd is like going crazy around this point. You kind of run through like a wall kind of thing, and it was really cool to let you know you're at like the halfway point. And it was a great feeling. And of course, at this point, I see Chelsea. She's recording. I don't know. It's like we're right by like the little relay thing, and it was just really cool because I didn't know if I was gonna be able to see her because there's so many people in this area, but I did. And of course, it's like you're seeing your wife, so you're super hyped up. I'm feeling good, really energetic at this point, and just keep pushing, right? So we're at about this halfway point now. From here, though, I would say that is definitely where the race got like as difficult as it could, I think. A really big thing about this course is that like a lot of people come here because they want to get a Boston qualifying time, and this is one of the best places in theory to do it because it's a net downhill course. It's a point-to-point race. It starts in Folsom and it ends in Sacramento, and the net elevation gain is like downhill. Even though there's some uphill points here and there, the net, like by the time it gets to the end, it finishes I think 300 something feet lower than it started. But let me tell you, my legs did not get that memo, because when I'm here at this halfway point is when I'm really starting to think, and I think the course was like this in the beginning, but you're so fresh that you're not really contemplating it. But around mile like 14 or 15, I was like, this it's going straight uphill, man. Like these uphills are way harder than the downhills are, and I'm not getting enough recovery on the downhill to net out, like it's pretty difficult. So it literally felt like I was fighting an uphill battle at this point. So and it's crazy because and I'll show the data here, but the net of the course definitely was downhill, but your legs don't notice that is what I'm saying. So keep that in mind if you're planning on this race in the future. So I keep pushing. At this point, I'm noticing that my pace is slowing, but that's okay. You're kind of expecting that towards the end, and that's where like your mental toughness is what really wins the day at these kind of times, right? So that's why you go on these long 20-mile runs, 22 miles, etc. before you run this marathon, so you know that you have this capability in you and you can do it. So I slow down a little bit. I just want to make sure I don't burn out. I'm at like a 9:30 pace, and I just want to hold on to that. Around mile 18, I'm having flashbacks in Chicago because that was where the race really unraveled for me completely. And I'm like, okay, I feel pretty good today, so I think things are going to be okay. Here's the last time I see the 405 Pacers. They passed me at this point, and I'm like, well, guess I'm not going sub 4 today, but it's cool. And I'm still having fun. That's what's important. So definitely being entertained by the crowd, by the camaraderie of all the other runners around and stuff. And we're in the latter stages of the race at this point, so I'm really just locking in, and I'm trying to kind of get myself out of the pain cave and just think of something fun or funny. And I remembered a story that Chelsea's grandma, who I'm gonna call my grandma too, for all intents and purposes, she told a hilarious story during Thanksgiving that I'll spare you the details, but it had a great punchline. And I told myself that I would remember this at some point in the race, and it just kind of came to me randomly at like mile 19, and I bust out laughing. It was just a really good experience to like kind of have that thing that like kind of pushes you forward, right? So that kind of took my mind off of it for a while, and I chuckled to myself for like a mile, literally thinking about that story. And I don't feel terrible, which is great. So I get to mile 20. I think I see Chelsea here one more time, which obviously is like a super boost, keeps me pushing, have a little talk break to the camera. And at mile 21, I'm like seeing people walking. I think that's where you cross the bridge and you're like properly into Sacramento at that point. And I'm like, man, this is the furthest I've ever run at one time without stopping, which is like really crazy, right? Because it's like, obviously you signed up for a race that's longer than that, so you have to think you can run further than that, but at the same time, you're like, damn, I ain't never ran this far before. So, it's just a crazy experience, right? Like at that point, I'm like, wow, like who knows what's gonna happen next, because this is just uncharted territory. So at mile 21, I'm like, noticing that my pace is going a little slower. I'm like creeping into like 10-minute miles, and then mile 22 I look at my watch, I'm like, dude, I'm running like an 11 something now, and it feels hard. It feels really hard. So I'm like, okay, I know what happened in Chicago. I do not want to be walking the last like 2 miles or whatever. So I kind of took a little walk break, and I think I walked for about a minute and a half or 2 minutes. And at this point, I kind of got an idea of like a strategy to get me through those last 4 miles, which was I would run a mile and then I'd walk for like 2 minutes or so, just to make sure I'm like kind of keeping that balance, but not going to a complete halt at the same time. So I kind of end up doing this for like the next couple miles. I go for one final restroom break at like mile 24-ish, maybe 25, which is crazy. Like I never thought in my life that this would happen, but I stopped at a porta potty like 3 times during this race, and I went twice before. Sorry if that's TMI, but that's just mind-boggling to me. If anybody else struggles with this or anything, please let me know in the comments, because like I don't want to do this again. Like I could have shaved probably 3 or 4 minutes off my race time if I didn't do that. So anyway, I digress. So I'm here. We're in downtown Sacramento. This is literally right by where I picked up the packet and everything the day before. It's right where we had brunch the day before. So, I'm coming through and I'm like, oh man, I know where I'm at. This is great. Like, wow. And it's really just a crazy feeling. You're coming through and there's so many runners kind of like congregating down this strip. There's people that, you might have passed at mile 15 and it's like, hey man, we're back here, we're doing this together. And there's actually a guy that I passed on the bridge at mile 21, And he was like, hey man, I've been following you the whole time. He's like, don't walk now, we got to keep going. So we ended up running together a little bit, and here we are. So I can see the finish line now. I'm feeling extremely emotional because at this point I know that I'm running like a huge PR, over an hour faster than my previous best. And it was kind of like that moment, right? Like, I've been making videos on this channel. I've been talking about my goals with the marathon and other races, distances as well, but it just hasn't really like come together necessarily. And it's wild that like the one race where I had the least goals, it kind of worked out the best, right? So I don't know, I'm feeling kind of emotional, but like in a good way, like all positive feelings. The crowd is on both sides. They kind of split the men and the women to go in different directions, which I thought was really great. So it's like we can all get really cool finish line photos and not have like, I don't know, some random guy jumping in front of a woman at the last second or something, silly like that. So yeah, we're coming through. There's a guy in front of me recording on a GoPro and I have my camera. So the announcer's like kind of poking fun at us, talking about, look at these guys recording the finish and, blah, blah, blah. So it was cool. I feel like this is the most interaction I've ever had with the crowd, like during a race. And, I crossed the line 4 hours, I think it was 4 hours, 18 minutes and 59 seconds. I don't know how that happened, just squeaking under the 4:19, but I'll take it. And yeah, it's just a great race. I mean, all around, had a great time. It was, I guess, just thoughts on the event in general. Like, the facilities and the support crew were phenomenal. You always have those fears. Are they going to run out of cups? Are they going to run out of water or anything like that? Nothing like that happened. They had like anti-cramping stuff, which I'm sure people were taking to good effect. I didn't personally take it, but it was cool that it was out there. The crowd was amazing. I didn't know what to expect, but there were people dressed up like dinosaurs and stuff. Like, I don't know, it was just kind of wild. A lot of people like playing music out there on the course. Very nice, energetic. I like that it was possible for my wife to meet up with me in certain places. I guess I should probably have talked to her before I made this video and seen how easy or difficult that was, but it seemed like it wasn't impossible because we met up like the amount of times that I thought we'd meet up, so that was cool. Now, I would say the only downside to this race, right? So a big advertising thing for them is that it's the fastest course in the West, and like people come here to get this Boston qualifying time, and that's cool, right? I totally can see that. But I think there's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy there, if we want to say that, right? I think the reason why people BQ at this race is because they were gonna do it anyway. They put in the work. These are really fast people who are coming here, and it's not because the course itself is fast. It's because it's at the end of the year. The weather is like very conducive to running quickly. Yes, technically it's net downhill, but like the people who are coming are the real deal. So it just kind of is what it is, because I think the uphill portions of this course far outweigh the downhill. Like, basically the only way that I would have gotten to the end and felt like I still had something left, I would have had to severely run just so much slower than planned in the beginning, because there's just so many like rolling hills until you get to like mile 20 or 21. And yeah, it's kind of hard for me to sit here and say like, oh yeah, I was gonna run 10-minute miles until the last 4 miles or whatever, so that I could reel off some really quick ones. And it's like, well, if you look at how everything kind of pans out, if you had run a little bit faster in the beginning, like I think the times still average out to be about the same. So yeah, if you're looking to come here because you think it's a really fast course, like I would say kind of rethink that. I think you'll get this course won't stop you from getting a PR, but it's not going to be this like magical, you're flying kind of feeling the entire time because you're going downhill the entire time, because that's just not what's happening. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it. Great race. I had an amazing time. Next up, I think I'm going to do the Oakland Running Festival in March. I'm signed up for the Believe in the Run Winter Grit in January, so I'm going to be trying to do like a run streak during January as well. And that's pretty much it. So everybody out there, I hope you're having a wonderful, safe Christmas and you're enjoying your time with your loved ones. Don't work too hard and make sure you get your runs in, if you can. And of course, as always, stay blessed, inspire others, and stay safe out there, y'all. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.